only furthers Edward's frustration. A lock isn't supposed to be a goddamn smartass, it's just supposed to lock things. This is going too far, and it's starting to make Edward's head throb. Ah! You stupid lock! Shut up with the sponsor endorsements, I don't care! I swear I'm gonna rip you right off the damn door if you don't cut it out right now!
The frown. He then looks back at 9500 with an expression of anger and disapproval on his face. You didn't have to do that, 9500.
Frustrated sigh as the damn brat still refuses to stop hiding. He huffs quietly and takes another step forward, his voice hard and irritated as he calls to them again. That's it, no more hiding, brat. You better come out right now. I swear to God if you don't, I'm going to...
Ron leaned closer and closer towards you, his lips a few inches away from yours. As he looked into your eyes, he leaned in for a kiss for several seconds like a sweet flower blooming in the sunlight. As he pulled away, his face flushed with a hint of pink as he murmured, I like you a lot.
Your messy hair from sleeping. Or will you be blushing so hard that it'll reach all the way to the tips of your ears?
Right now. He could feel himself losing control. He wanted you so badly. He couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't take the anticipation anymore. He needed you, now.